In this video, we'll cover templates. We'll talk about what templates are used for and how they can make our lives easier. And we'll also talk about some important tasks you need to complete if you're planning on using templates. There's some things you have to take into consideration if you want these templates to work properly. But first off, what is a template? Well, a template is essentially an image of a virtual machine. If you've ever used Symantec Ghost or Acronis True Image or any of those kind of imaging solutions, a template serves a similar purpose as those do. So, for example, let's say we create a virtual machine and we install the appropriate antivirus software and we configure the Windows firewall on it and we set proxy settings and all these unique settings that all of our virtual machines have to have. And now I need to deploy another virtual machine with those same settings. With a template, deploying that virtual machine takes as long as it takes you to right-click and choose Deploy from Template. It's really easy, really fast. And based on this single template, we can create many virtual machines that all have this ideal configuration for our environment. So let's not get ahead of ourselves though here. Let's talk about how we actually create a template. And a template is a virtual machine essentially. It's a virtual machine that we've converted to an image. So the first step is to create this perfect VM, a virtual machine that conforms to all of our standards and has all the latest Windows updates. It's essentially a perfectly configured virtual machine that meets all of our needs. And once we've done that, we have two options shown here that we can use to create a template based on that virtual machine. If we choose to clone this virtual machine to a template, a complete copy of that virtual machine is going to be created and it's going to be marked as a template. And the original VM will remain intact. So we're not going to dispose of that original VM once the template's created. Now, if we choose to convert a VM to a template, that's a different story. We're actually taking that virtual machine, we're marking it as a template, and it ceases to be a virtual machine at that point. It's no longer a VM. Now it's strictly a template. What happens underneath the surface is that perfect VM that we just converted to a template, its VMX file, which contains all the configuration of that VM, is converted to something called a VMTX file. And now this is strictly a template. It can't be powered on. It can't run as a virtual machine. You can't make changes to it. That's one of the good things about a template. It's not easy to casually mess up one of your templates. You actually have to convert it back to a VM first. Now, templates are not without their complexities. There are certain things that we have to think about. Really the same thing you have to think about with any imaging solution. There's some problems with creating a bunch of copies of the same virtual machine. For example, here we see my template. It's got an IP address. It's got a computer name in Windows. It's got a Windows SID. And so if I create a bunch of copies of that virtual machine, I'm going to have problems here. I'm going to have a bunch of VMs with duplicate IP addresses, duplicate names, and the same SID in Windows. The answer to this problem is a customization spec. The customization spec is going to allow us to rip out some of those settings and replace them with the appropriate values. All right, so now you see this last VM that got created, we use the customization spec. It's got a unique IP address, a unique name in Windows, and a unique SID. We can use these customization specs for either deploy from template operations, or we can also use them for cloning. What happens if our template gets out of date? Let's say we've created this template 6 months ago, and now there's Windows updates that have happened, and there's other changes that we need to make to it. Well, the template doesn't have any relationship with virtual machines after the fact. Once a VM's been deployed from template, that relationship is broken. So all of these VMs are operating completely independent of this template. So if I need to make changes to those VMs, they all need to be individually patched and updated. We also need to keep our template current. So let's say those Windows updates come out. We can convert this template back to a virtual machine, perform all of our updates, make whatever changes we need to make, and then simply convert it back to a template. So it's really easy to perform updates, a lot easier than it is with legacy imaging solutions. This is a very quick and easy process for us. In review, in this lesson we learned that templates can be used to create many identical VMs based on a standard image that we've created. We can use a customization spec to deploy all of those virtual machines with their own unique settings. We have different ways that we can create a template. We can either clone a virtual machine to a template and leave the original VM intact, or we can convert a virtual machine to a template. And if we do that, we can always convert that template back to a VM later on, perform whatever updates we need to do, and then convert it back to a template.